Welcome to Boards, Beer, and BS, the Snomie.com podcast where snowboard pros, coaches, and local riders hang out, have a drink, and talk snowboarding. My name is Jedidiah Tan, snowboard coach and founder of Snomie.com. If you like hanging out with other snowboarders and talking about snowboarding, this is the podcast for you. So sit back and enjoy the podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to Boards, Beer, and BS, the Snomie.com snowboard podcast. So this is episode 9. In this episode, I figured we'd tackle the whole topic of how to get the dream snowboard life. So I've covered this in the past a little bit in blog pieces, in really short videos, but I thought I'd really dive in and cover this topic in depth. And what I really want to talk about is how to snowboard 100 days a year, how to snowboard 200 days a year, or whatever your goal is in this world, how to snowboard as much as you want, how to get that dream lifestyle where you're able to do what you love every day and just have the freedom, I guess is what I'm saying. Because I have so many people that email me and say, hey man, how do you do what you do? I want to be able to do what you do, whether it's travel or snowboard or whatever, or still earning a full-time income and all of that. So I thought I'd just cover all the different topics related to that, really dive deep into that today. So here's a quick look at some of the topics we're going to be covering. We're going to be talking about work to play or play versus work, which is a better option as far as careers go, careers that fit best with being able to snowboard and having the freedom to do what you want every day. Why snowboard related jobs aren't always that great. We're talking about entrepreneurship as well to get the freedom to snowboard. So what's the deal with entrepreneurship? Should you start your own business? Is starting your own business for everyone? And why college for me is really, really hit or miss. So it's not so much a bad thing, but it's not so much a good thing. I'll explain why I think college it's really, really hit or miss. It's not for everyone. And yeah, so this whole podcast will be dedicated to how to snowboard 100 days a year, or 200 days a year, whatever your goal is. And as always, there's show notes for this episode. So since we're going to be talking about so many different careers and jobs and things like that, I thought this week I'd make a nice breakdown for you guys. So if you go to snomie.com/episode 9, the number 9, that's where you get the show notes for this podcast. And this week in the show notes for the podcast, I'm going to put a little list. I'm going to write down the pluses and minuses, why I think are the pluses and minuses for all the different options, the different careers, things like that. So if you want the full breakdown for everything I'm going to talk about on this podcast, make sure you check out the show notes at snomie.com/episode 9, the number 9. And as always, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Snomie.com's Snowboard Trick Secrets program. So if you're at all interested in learning to do freestyle tricks, learning to do spins, jibs, whatever it is, these are the most detailed snowboard trick tip videos you will find anywhere online, anywhere. I guarantee it. So if you're interested in getting a few free trick tips to start off with and see how they are, then check out snomie.com/snowboard trick secrets. And that's where you can get started with our free step-by-step trick tip tutorial program. So if you're interested in snowboard freestyle, give it a go and see how you go. All right, so let's get into the podcast. All right, so firstly, apologies that we haven't had an episode in a little while. So I've been overseas. I've been doing a little bit of traveling. So for you guys familiar, I've been to Jordan and the Dead Sea. So basically, the Dead Sea is this place where you can float without actually doing anything. So it's this big lake that the salt content is so high that you can just lie there and you just float in the water without doing anything. It's pretty cool. Anyway, that's why we haven't had a little podcast in a while, but I'm back now and I'm set in this place for another 3 months. So we'll get more regular podcast episodes happening now. So yeah, I mean, if you guys want to see some pictures, I'll throw some pictures up in the blog as well, so you guys can see what I've been up to in the show notes. So yeah, I mean, let's get into the podcast. Okay, so with being able to snowboard 100 days a year, 200 days a year, or whatever your dream lifestyle for snowboarding is, that differs from person to person. For some people, they might have family, and then it isn't practical to be snowboarding 200 days a year. They've got family commitments to take care of, or whatever it is, but they might still want to snowboard 20 days a year, 50 days a year, maybe even 100 days a year if they live in a place that lets them do that. So let's go over all the different options, starting with what I call work to play versus play to work. So these are the two options that I think all careers fit into. So you either work to play, which means that whatever your job is, whether it's, I don't know, a doctor, a dentist, whatever it is, you work, and then in your free time you get to play. And that work provides you the money, the freedom, the ability to do what you love in your free time. And then there's play as work, which basically means you do what you love, whether it's snowboarding or something that you enjoy doing or playing as your work. So for that, in that case, it's something like what I do, where I run a snowboard company as my work, and I teach online business and marketing as my work. And it's something that I like to do, right? So I'm playing as my work. So there are pluses and minuses for both. We'll go over everything. And one thing to keep in mind, that it's not one size fits all. Okay, when I was younger, I used to think that, okay, so everyone should play as work. Why wouldn't you want to snowboard as your job if you could, you know? But the older I get, the more I realize, look, there's a whole bunch of different ways to look at it. There's a whole bunch of different pluses and minuses for everything. And not everyone's going to fit into the same categories. Not everyone's going to want the same types of jobs and want to do the same sort of things. So I'll go over the pluses and minuses, and you guys can you can make up your own mind what you think is best, what you think is a good path for you. So with work to play, it's the best example I can give is my friend who's an engineer. So he went to uni for 3 to 4 years, graduated as an engineer. Now he works in the mines. But because he's an engineer in the mines, he gets 7 days off every 2 weeks. So that means he works for 7 days, then he gets 7 days paid vacation basically to do whatever he wants. So he could go to Hawaii, he could go snowboarding, he could do whatever he wants. Lately, his thing has been buying expensive motorbikes and racing them in his spare time off. So that's what I mean by work to play. In this case, he's got this really nice job. It pays him 6 figures. He's an engineer at the mines, and that gives him the ability to do what he loves in his spare time. He still gets a lot of freedom, 7 days every 2 weeks is pretty good, when you only work 7 days and then you get 7 days vacation. That's pretty good as far as flexibility and freedom to do what you love. So that's what I mean by work to play. It's not always that you want to be doing your job, what you love as your job. There's a whole bunch of different ways to look at it. So firstly, here are the pluses, in my opinion, of work to play. And the pluses is, for one, it's a safer option. Your route is planned, it's less stressful. So, if you want to become an engineer or a dentist, or like my sister, she's a radiologist, and nowadays she gets a lot of free time. And that with that option, it's a lot more safe, right? You work your 9 to 5 or whatever it is, you know what you're in for, you go to uni, you graduate, this is the career. It's all very planned out. So in that respect, it's a lot safer. There's no, you're not in some brand new job category that you don't know what's going to come around the corner or whatever it is. No, for my friend, he knew that he went to school, became an engineer, got a job in the mines after, and it's very step 1, step 2, step 3. So that's, for a lot of people, they like that safeness. It's very reliable. They know what they're getting into, and not everyone likes a lot of risk. And another plus is that there's that separation between work and play. So people who haven't worked for themselves or haven't done what they love as your job might not understand this, but when you're doing what you love as a job, there's no separation between work and play. And I'll get more into this later when I talk about playing as your work. But basically, if you're working as an engineer, as a doctor, as a dentist, whatever it is, when you go home, and then you switch into relaxation mode, you watch Game of Thrones, you go snowboarding, whatever it is, you're off the clock, and that's a great thing. It's why in the past I've actually liked a lot of little casual jobs that I used to do before I started my own business, because there's that separation. You can clock off, you finish work at 5 or 6 or whatever it is, and then you're on your own time. You don't have to think about work, you don't have to think about anything else. And there's that strong separation. You're never at home watching the basketball game or the sports game or whatever it is, and in the back of your mind it's like, oh man, I should be working or whatever it is, right? No. There's that strong separation between work and play when you're doing a job like an engineer or a dentist or accountant or whatever it is. So those are the pluses in my mind anyway. And the minuses, well, for one, it might take longer and cost more money if it's a professional career job that requires uni. So like my friend, he had to go to uni for 3 to 4 years, and I'll get into this later, but uni, most people don't finish uni on time. So if it's a 4-year degree, most people take 5 years. So that's 5 years of your time that you're spending money studying. You're not really earning much money during that time. And in fact, most people are going into debt, spending tens of thousands of dollars. So that's a lot of time, 5 years, and let's say $10,000 a year. So you're spending $50,000 and 5 years of your time to go to uni and get a professional career job or whatever it is. So if it is a professional career job, not every job is obviously in that realm, but for a lot of those jobs, that's how it is. You put in the time, you spend the money, and then you get that safe, reliable job that lets you work and play in your spare time. So in my mind, that's a minus in a lot of ways, but I don't know, for some of you guys that might be a plus in that, again, it's the safe option. But in my mind, that's a lot of money. $50,000 in this world, when university these days doesn't even guarantee you a job once you graduate. It's a pretty, I don't know, $50,000 is a lot of money, and 5 years of your time is a lot of time. So another minus that I see is that you might not get as much free time to snowboard as you'd like. And it can take quite a lot of time for you to get into that situation where whatever professional career or whatever work you've picked actually gives you the freedom to go snowboard or whatever it is that you love to do. So, for example, in the case of engineering, my friend who's an engineer, it took him a long time. He had to go to uni, he had to go through all these other things. And, if he didn't get this job, he stumbled into this job, which was very good for him. He might have had to work in an office job 9 to 5 every day and not really have much freedom to go snowboarding and things like that. So, here's another good example. My sister, who's a radiologist, it took her a long time to get to the situation where she gets more freedom. She had to study from the age of 18 up to basically 30 years old. And that's a long time to be studying, I'm not 30 yet, and I've gone snowboarding so much. So, she put in the time. She put in a lot of time to go snowboarding and study, and a lot of money, and it took a long time. She was 30 by the time that she's able to go do what she likes in her free time. If you're a doctor, anyone that is a doctor, that these guys don't get much free time when they're studying. You're basically a slave for whatever that period of time is before you finally specialize and finish all your training and all of that. And unless you pick one of the few specialties that gives you the freedom, a lot of those guys don't get free time. So that's what I mean with a lot of professional careers. Even though you might have a lot of money, stability, whatever, you may not get as much free time to snowboard as you like. So I like to see it as my friend he's an exception in a lot of ways, in that, he gets to work 7 days and then get 7 days holiday and then repeat, right? Not everyone gets to do that in professional jobs. So yeah, it's just something to think about. If you're working to play, you're working for someone else. So your free time isn't your own. It's not necessarily you that gets to pick when you get to go snowboarding and all of that. But, those are the options. I'll talk more about it in a bit. But, let's talk about play as work. So playing as work, where you're basically doing what you love as your job, whether it's snowboarding or coaching or whatever it is. I'll talk about the different careers now, but let's just talk about the pluses and minuses first. So when you play as work, the plus, or the huge plus, is that you typically get more time to do what you love, right? I mean, that's the main thing, is that you get to snowboard more. You get to, if you're a snowboard instructor, you get to spend more time on the ski slopes, even if it's not ideal, you might be stuck on bunny hills or whatever it is, you still get to do what you love more. And that's pretty typical for someone that has what they love to do as their job. And the big minus of that, however, is that you might lose some love for what you used to enjoy once it becomes work. So for a lot of things, whether it's something that you love to do in your spare time, you might love to do it when it's your hobby, but as soon as it becomes work, and you're doing every single day, you might start to lose that love for it a little bit. So for an example, back when I started Snomie.com in the early days, I used to love putting out one blog a day or whatever it is, teaching people about some new snowboard technique. But, after 2 years of putting out one blog a day, I still enjoyed doing it, but at some point it did become a little bit of a work, a little bit of that joy in putting up that fresh blog post got lost because, it became my work to have to do that. So with anything that you love, once you turn that into a job, it can take a little bit of that love away from it. So it's just something that I count as a minus anyway. And another big minus is that with a lot of these jobs where you get to do what you love as your job, the career path isn't as clear and it's not as set out, and your future isn't as guaranteed. For me, starting my own business, that path wasn't clear, it wasn't set out, it wasn't guaranteed. Being a college dropout definitely wasn't a very stable and smart move at the time. But, well, I argue that it was a pretty smart move now in retrospect. But, it's not really the safe, reliable path that a lot of people like. So that's just something to keep in mind with a lot of these play as work careers. So, let's talk about the careers then. So careers that fit best for the freedom to snowboard and the pluses and minuses. And remember, I'm going to put all of these notes and everything in the show notes for this podcast episode. So if you go to snomie.com/episode 9, the number 9, that's where you get this list of everything I'm talking about, pluses, minuses, careers, everything. So with careers that fit best for the freedom to snowboard, I'd say things like I've mentioned, professional jobs, things like engineering, where you can, work 7 days off, on 7 days off, or whatever it is. A lot of engineers get to do that on and off schedule, where they go to some rural area work and then they get some free time to do what they like, and then they go back and work and repeat. There's dentistry. Dentistry is a good one in that you're basically a highly paid doctor with set work hours, So I have a friend, Dave, who's in Canada. He, for a while there, he was only working 4 days a week. So he had 3-day weekends, 6-figure salary, a lot of freedom, only work 9 to 5, not very stressful, job as far as what he had to do. So dentistry can be a good one as far as a professional job that gives you the freedom to snowboard. Another one is radiologist. So like my sister, the only downside is that just take a long time. Radiology, it's not exactly an easy career to instantly jump into. It takes 10 plus years of studying. But, once you're in that position, radiologists, insanely highly paid, and they only work they're basically the dentists of medicine as I see it. They get a lot more freedom than most other doctors who have to answer patients and all this other stuff. Most radiologists, they just work as x-ray techs or things like that, and it's a lot easier for them anyway, as far as stability and 9 to 5 and set working hours where they're not on call all the time. So yeah. Oh, another one is ship workers. So I've met a few people in my travels, mostly in New Zealand, where they worked on ships, so yachts, boats, things like that. And basically the way it works is a lot like engineering, where you have a set amount of time on the ship, and then you have mandatory leave where you get paid to basically not work on the ship. So it's to stop people from getting like cabin fever and things like that. So they might work 1 month or 2 months or 3 months on the ship, and then they might get 1 month, 2 months or 3 months paid vacation. So I met a lot of people who work 2 months on the ship, and then they'd go to New Zealand for the snow season and then snowboard for 2 months, then go back to their ship and work again. So that's another option. I think most of the people that I saw in ship working were usually either staffs, so servers, or electricians, things like that, engineering-ish type things. So yeah, that's another great option. Other careers that really fit that freedom to snowboard and aren't professional jobs necessarily are anything that you can work from a computer. So a lot of jobs like graphic designers, web designers, programmers, these guys, typically a lot of them can work from home and they can set their own hours. So I have a friend, Jamie, who for a while he lived in Whistler for what I think it was 2 to 3 years, and technically he was based in the UK, but because he was a graphic designer, he could work from Whistler, send his work over to the UK, and that was how he did it. He'd go snowboarding in the day, come home, do his work at night, and that was basically it. So, for people that work from a computer, there's a lot more freedom these days in that, with the internet, you can work from pretty much anywhere in the world. And in a lot of ways, that's what I do. I work from a computer and do my own thing. So another option is location-based jobs. So these are things like people that live in Vancouver, where most jobs, are just normal work. You're living in the city doing your normal work, but because of the location, they can go snowboarding after work. In Vancouver, a lot of people can go night riding. So there's a whole bunch of hills less than an hour from the city. Some are 30 minutes maybe, depending on where you live. So they can work their 9 to 5, come home, change, go snowboarding. So there's a lot of location-based jobs, even if you're living at a ski resort, I've said this before, there are normal jobs at ski resorts. Ski resorts still need lawyers, they still need accountants, they still need doctors, nurses, things like that, and you're still working a normal job. You're just working it at a ski resort. And there may not be as many of those jobs to go around, but they still exist. I know plenty of people that work normal jobs that took a small pay cut to go live at a ski resort, and they love their life because they get to snowboard 100 days a year, and they still work their professional job, whatever it is, So location is a really powerful thing to keep in mind. Now, another thing is, here's the obvious option that most people think of at first is becoming a snowboard bum. So you could become a snowboard bum, just go work at a ski resort, work as a server in the evenings or whatever it is that's pretty typical, or work as a bartender, and that gives you a lot of freedom to work and snowboard as much as you want, pretty much. Snowboard bums pretty much get more time on hill than pretty much anyone else I know, really. Because they're working evenings, they can go snowboard pretty much every day. So they might have a 200-day season. But obviously with that, there's pluses and minuses. So the main minus is that obviously if you're a snowboard bum, you don't usually get paid that well. So you might be living paycheck to paycheck, and whatever you do, please, if you choose the snowboard bum option, I have nothing against that. I was a snowboard bum and I still consider myself a snowboard bum, even though I'm a much highly better paid snowboard bum now. But if you do choose to become like a server at a ski resort or whatever it is, and you're thinking of that as like a long-term thing where you're going to be doing this for more than just one season, then please make sure you plan for the future. You definitely don't want to become one of those people that's 30, 35, and you're still working as a server for minimum wage at a ski resort with no retirement plan. And it's one of those things where you really want to be careful that you don't get stuck in it for too long. There's a reason that people don't stay servers their whole lives. It's because, you're really poorly paid. And as much as I loved being a snowboard bum, and I still love being a snowboard bum, I don't really love doing it for minimum wage. There's only so long you can survive on peanut butter sandwiches and eggs as your main staple of your diet, and instant noodles, So make sure you plan, there's nothing wrong with becoming a snowboard bum, but I'd have other avenues, things you're aiming for, moving up the food chain a little bit, because, no one likes working for minimum wage for too long. Now, another option is snowboard-related jobs. So snowboard coaching, working inside the industry, whatever it is. And then there's entrepreneurs. So with these last two, I'm going to talk a little bit more about them. So snowboard-related jobs. The main one people think of is either being a pro snowboarder or snowboard coaching. And then there's all those other jobs related to working for a ski resort, working in a ski resort, working for snowboard companies or whatever. I'm not really going to cover the ones that are just working for companies, because in my mind, a lot of those are just normal jobs, whether you're being a business manager or whether you're doing marketing for a snowboard company or whatever it is, it's still just a standard job. There's nothing really that differentiates that from a normal marketing job. It's just that it's snowboard related. But, you might still be working in office 9 to 5. So, again, it's more to do with location if you happen to get a good location where you can snowboard a lot. So what I will talk about is snowboard coaching. So why snowboard related jobs aren't always that great. So here's the thing with snowboard coaching is that a lot of people don't realize that if you're a snowboard instructor, a lot of those private lesson fees, so you might see that, hey, private snowboard coaching lessons cost whatever it is, $100, $200, $300 an hour, whatever the insane amount is. The snowboard coach doesn't get most of that money. Most of that money usually goes to the mountain. So whether it's, I don't know, Mammoth Mountain or Whistle.com or whatever it is, they take a huge cut of those lesson fees. So the snowboard coach himself is only left with a small portion of it. And while private lessons do pay the best, they still don't see most of the money that's going towards those private lessons. The resort will take a big chunk of it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is with snowboard coaching, you're going to spend a lot of time on bunny slopes. And that's just something you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to get used to living on the green slopes, and basically, yeah, it may be a 30, 40, 50 centimeter powder day, and you're coaching beginners, teaching them how to do like tiny turns on the baby slopes. And there's nothing you can do about it because they booked the lesson and you're a snowboard coach and you're going to have to teach them on your powder day. So that's just the thing. And with snowboard coaching, it's not really the most reliable income until you get really good at it, as in you get really good at selling yourself, getting repeat customers, and yeah, generally things like that. Because when you first start out in the snowboard coaching, a lot of those lessons, the walk-in lessons from people at the resort, are going to go to the higher up coaches. So you're not going to get a lot of those. You're going to spend a lot of time on the waiting list, basically where you're just hanging around the resort waiting for a lesson. And in that case, you're not getting paid full wage. You're getting paid, whatever it is, $5 an hour or something like that, just to sit around and wait in case there's a lesson. So that's just something to keep in mind. Snowboard coaching, it's an okay job, it's an okay start as far as to get started in snowboarding, and you do get a lot of days on the hill, but I don't know if I look at it for the long term. I don't know if I look at it as something I'd want to do for 50 years if I was working for a resort, that is. Obviously now technically I guess I'm a snowboard coach, but I work for myself. I work for my own website. I'm a lot far higher paid than most snowboard coaches. So if you're thinking about instructing for a resort or things like that, it's a good start, but I don't know if I'd make it, the long-term plan. That's my opinion on it anyway. So the other snowboard-related job I want to talk about is pro snowboarding. So, I mean, I've talked on length about why pro snowboarding is pretty much just not a great option for a lot of people. And I'll paint you a picture. So, for example, you're a pro snowboarder, you think, oh, I get to go snowboarding every day and this is my job. I get to go and learn new tricks every day. Well, that's not always necessarily how it works. There'll be a lot of times that maybe you might be thinking, oh man, I just want to go ride that powder line, or I want to go do this, or I want to go just have a chill day in the park today. And you'll be like, nope, sorry, you got sponsorship commitments. You got to go do this contest on the other side of the country. And so for a lot of pro snowboarders, they actually get less time on the hill than you'd expect for some of them, because they spend a lot of times traveling around, doing sponsorship commitments, and their time on the hill isn't always their time. They might be under a lot of pressure to learn this new double cork trick or do this other thing. Otherwise, your sponsors are basically going to drop you. Sponsors might not say that they're going to drop you if you don't do well in contests, but it's basically assumed. If you don't keep your visibility up as a pro snowboarder, you don't perform, you're going to get dropped for some up and coming young talent, right? So that's why I don't really you guys know my story, the ones that have been with Snomie for a long time. You know that for a long time I was training to become do the whole pro snowboarding. I even did a lot of contests and things like that. And I just don't think it's a great option, honestly. Out of all the options, if you ask me, do you want to be a pro snowboarder? Or do you want to be my friend who's an engineer, earning 6 figures, stable job, and he gets 7 days of holiday every second week? And I'd pick my friend any day over the pro snowboarding path, where you get paid peanuts in a lot of cases, have to work a second job to make rent, and don't have any stability, where your sponsors can drop you at any minute, and your future depends on you not getting injured and learning new tricks all the time, it's a lot of stress. It's just, out of all the options I've mentioned so far, location-based jobs, snowboard, entrepreneurship, professional jobs, working from a computer, all of those, I'd rather have a lot of those over pro snowboarding, in my mind anyway. That's not to say it's a bad thing. I know a lot of friends who are, really enjoy being a pro snowboarder. But the interesting thing is a lot of them will have other plans in their head. They'll have other options of, other careers they can do, other things they can do to try to supplement their income or try to make a move and support themselves without relying on pro snowboarding. So even a lot of pro snowboarders I know are looking at other career options outside of pro snowboarding because they know it's a rough job in a lot of cases. Unless you're Shaun White, and that 0.0001% of people get to be, that tops pro snowboarder, it's not as great as most people think. Okay, so let's talk about entrepreneurship. What about starting your own business like I've done versus college and a proper job? Okay, so this question is going to come up obviously because this is what I do. I do entrepreneurship. I started my own business, and it's honestly, it's not for everyone. I'll give you the pluses and minuses, but firstly, working for yourself, the pluses is that you can set your own hours. You can choose your own field. For me, I can wake up at noon if I want, and that's fine, because I set my own hours, and that's great in a lot of ways. The great thing is I can wake up, I can go snowboarding, and then I can come back and do my business at night, and that means I can snowboard every day if I wanted to. It's great. And this year I've been in, how many countries have I been in? I can travel, I can work from a computer, I can do what I want. It's great. I've been to, how many countries have I been to? I've been to, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, Israel, Jordan, Canada. I'm not sure if I'm missing some, but yeah, I've been to a lot of countries over the past year, and that's just because, I get to set my own hours and I'm self-employed. So I have the freedom to do what I want. And another plus is that you can create what I call passive income. What's great about starting your own business is eventually you can outsource a lot of the work, or you can hire other people to help you. And with something like what I've done, where I sell snowboard lessons online and teach business online, a lot of it is what's called passive income, where, I might wake up in the morning and I've got $300 in my bank account extra, because some people might have joined my course overnight, or some people have bought some lessons from me while I was sleeping. And that's what I call passive income, because I was basically earning money while I slept, and that's great. And that's just, that's the dream for a lot of people. Passive income is pretty much the best form of income you can have, because you're not working 9 to 5. You're not, when you're not working, you're still earning money. And that's what's so awesome about being self-employed in a lot of ways. And another huge plus is that your income is basically limited by your creativity and your skill. So while, you might be one of the failures that don't earn money or whatever it is, and, there's a lot of people that fail at entrepreneurship, if you're successful, your income is basically limited by how good you are at business, how creative you are with your ideas. When we're looking at most of these other careers, whether it's dentistry, engineering, whatever it is, those are 6-figure jobs. But if you're owning your own business, your income could be a 7-figure, 8-figure job. Snomie is a 6-figure income. My business marketing is a 6-figure income. So your income is only limited by your creativity and skill when you're self-employed. And that's a big plus for me anyway, because I'm successful in it. Maybe if I wasn't successful in it, I might think otherwise. But for me, that's a big plus in that, I might just take a few tweaks here, another tweak here. I might have to work a little bit here, and then suddenly my income's doubled. I don't know many other jobs where I can basically double my income over the course of a month just by making some tweaks. And that's just a huge plus of working for yourself. Now, the minus is that you have no future guaranteed path. That wasn't a safe pick. If you want to work for yourself, you want to start your own business, that's basically huge risk. I mean, what's the statistic that most businesses fail? I can't remember what the statistic is, but a large majority of businesses fail. And it's true. Most people fail at business, but that's why most successful entrepreneurs have, 2, 3, maybe failed businesses before they get that one successful one that they do really well in, and that they learned a lot from their mistakes along the way. So it's a journey. It's definitely a journey. There's no future guaranteed path when it comes to starting your business and being self-employed. So for a lot of people, I know a lot of people that can't work for themselves. They're not the type of person that can work in a job that doesn't have that safe guarantee, So that's one thing. And another minus is that you don't have set working hours and you're responsible for your own income. Now, on one side, not having set working hours is great, right? As I just said, I can go traveling, I can go snowboarding every day, whatever I want to do, I can do it and then work at night. But when you don't have set working hours and you're responsible for your own income, one thing that happens is that you might end up having that blurred line where you're never off the clock. It's something I mentioned at the start of this podcast, where you might be sitting at home watching Game of Thrones, and at the back of your mind, you're thinking, man, I should be doing this piece of work or whatever it is. So you don't get to clock out ever. When you're self-employed, you never get to clock out. Your mind's always on your work in one way or another. I might be off eating fried chicken somewhere, but in the back of my mind will be like, oh man, I should do that tweak to the website and do this and record this lesson or whatever it is. And you're responsible for your own income. If you're self-employed, it's great that I get to go snowboarding 100 days a year, but you have to keep in mind that, if I don't do my work, I don't make money, period. So I don't get to pass the buck. It's not like working a retail job where, I just show up, work my set hours, go home. Whether the business succeeds or not, I still get paid in most cases, right? So, if you're working for McDonald's, that this income's going to come in every week. It's set. Whatever happens, you're getting that income. But when you're working for yourself, you don't have that guarantee. You're responsible for your own income. If you fail, and you don't get money, is because you didn't do the work. So for a lot of people, this is like the pressure that they can't take. So that's why it's not for everyone. Entrepreneurship has its massive pluses. Like I said, you could earn 6 figures, 7 figures. You could earn a lot of money. You could set your own hours. You could travel a lot. But you're responsible for your own income. So that's just something to keep in mind. And from what I've learned, I'll put this as a minus, but you have to be a set type of person. Not everyone can run their own business, as I've said in bits and pieces today. And basically, from what I've seen, the people that can run their own business that can be entrepreneurs, they're very positive, willing to adapt, and they improve and learn as they go. So I say this is the type of person that you need to be an entrepreneur to start your own business, because you're going to fail a lot. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to figure a lot of things out that, you didn't know as you're learning step by step. So a lot of things are blurry, and you need to be the type of person that, how do I explain this? Okay, so my girlfriend always says that everything in the world is pink to me. So what she means by this is the color pink. So when I look at something, like for me, I'm just insanely positive. I tend to only see the positives in most things. And then if I fail, I'll just be like, okay, that's fine. This happened and it's okay. I'll get back up and I'll fix it. So I'm just a very positive person. And in a lot of ways, that's why I'm successful as being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, and getting to snowboard 100, 200 days a year, whatever it is. It's because I'm positive. I'm able to get back up after each failure. So not everyone's like that. A lot of people might be a little bit negative. It might hit them harder when they fail. So it takes a certain type of person. And then the other thing is that a lot of people will get into business and then they won't be willing to adapt or improve and learn, so they'll be stuck on one course and they'll never change, and the business just slowly fails or whatever it is. So successful entrepreneurs are basically the ones that, they fail, then they adapt, they improve their product, whatever it is, they learn and they keep going. So that's the main thing I'm trying to get across, is that you have to be a certain type of person. Not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur, and unfortunately, as much as I love entrepreneurship, and I mean, I teach business. One of my other businesses is teaching business. So I love it, but I also respect that not everyone's the type of person that's going to be good at being a self-starter, managing their own work hours, being positive, adapting, learning, those aren't skills that everyone has. So yeah, those are my thoughts anyway. And, let's for the final topic, let's talk about college. What's hit or miss, in my opinion, as far as being able to snowboard, getting your dream lifestyle, all of that. Here are the facts is that one, most graduates in college, they don't finish on time. So if they have a 4-year degree, they're going to take 5 years on average. And, with an average spend of $10,000 a year, you're spending $50,000 in debt to get that degree. And then here's another stat is that less than half of all college graduates end up using their degree to work in the field that they studied. So I think it's actually way less than half. It might be 30%, maybe something like that. I can't remember what the exact stat is, but that's just the facts that most college graduates don't end up using their degrees to work in that study. So that degree just goes to waste in a lot of cases. So my view of college is that for career jobs, college is a must. I mean, if you want to become a dentist, an engineer, a doctor, accountant, pharmacist, whatever it is, for those career jobs, lawyer, for those jobs where college is a must, otherwise you literally can't get that job, then, you got to go to college. That's just how it is. But for a lot of non-career jobs, I don't see the benefit in a lot of them, for things like for what I do for business. What did I get out of my year in college? It just taught me that most college textbooks don't teach you what I need to know in the real world of business. That's what I got from my 1 year of commerce degree in college before I dropped out. And I mean, I'm way more successful now than I could ever have been using my college degree in a lot of cases. So college isn't for everyone, but, I'm not of the mindset that says, college is not for everyone. It depends. It's hit or miss. So in a lot of cases, you just have to make up your own mind. I mean, as I said, all the show notes for this will be on the website. So if you go to snomie.com/episode 9, the number 9, that's where you get the show notes for this. And I'll type this all out. I'll give you guys all the pluses and minuses and the list of all the different careers and things like that. And you guys can, have a look at the list for yourself and see the pluses and minuses. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of different paths for all the different careers, it's not one size fits all. Some people are going to be the engineers, some people are going to be the self-starters, start their own business, whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of different paths to get to that end goal. Okay, so whether it's 50 days a year, 100 days a year, 200 days a year for snowboarding, whatever it is, there's a whole bunch of different paths that fit best. Maybe you be a location-based person that lives in Vancouver or something like that, and you snowboard at night. Or maybe you'll be someone that is a snowboard bum living at a ski resort. There's all those different options. So maybe you're going to start your own business, right? So all those options are there in the show notes. You guys can check it out and have a look for yourself. But I hope this really covers the topic in depth. I've never done anything like this before where I just went really in depth into all the different topics. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast. Remember, if you're at all interested in any snowboard freestyle, learning how to do some snowboard tricks, then check out our free lesson series. It's step-by-step video tutorials, pretty much the most detailed snowboard trick tips you'll find anywhere online. Check them out at snomie.com/snowboard trick secrets. All right, so take care, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast.